Let's look at chapter 20 of To Kill a Mockingbird. In this chapter, we have two things going on. We have the conversation with Dolphus Raymond, and this is outside the courthouse where Scout and Dill are located, and they go back inside, and we have the last of the closing arguments made by Atticus. Let's go ahead and look at some of the details of this chapter. We'll start with Dolphus Raymond. Scout says some interesting things. She knows Mr. Raymond is evil, but she follows Dill. She knows he's evil because he's always drunk. He's doing some things that are inappropriate, such as he's married to a black lady. We'll contrast this later with Mayella and how we've already talked about how Mayella is lonely and doesn't fit in. Well, here's Dolphus Raymond doesn't fit in. But Scout has this idea that he has this pleasing appearance. He smells nice, like leather. He's wearing fine English riding boots. It's the only ones she's ever seen. He's pretty well off. He can do things that others disapprove of, mainly because he's wealthy and he gives other people an out, which we'll get to in a minute. And we have a really interesting moment when you read this, when Dolphus Raymond handed Dill a drink, said, "Here, this will settle you." And Dill drank and grinned and smiled, and Dolphus Raymond laughed. Scout was upset, of course, but we find out that it was only Coca-Cola, right? It was just a soft drink. There was no whiskey in this. There was no alcohol at all. Mr. Dolphus Raymond was not and is not drunk. He only pretends to be drunk. He tries to explain it to the kids. People don't understand him, why he lives with the African Americans, doesn't understand why he has a black wife and mixed kids. And he tries to explain to them that he could just not care what people think, and how do you put it? He could just be like, well, to hell with them. But he's not like that. He doesn't wish anybody ill or anything. So what he does is he gives them a way out. His drinking gives people a peace of mind. All they need to do is think, oh, well, that's Mr. Raymond. He's under the spell of whiskey, and that's why he's doing these things. He can't help it. And the people are okay with that. It's kind of weird, but they need to categorize what they see is happening. And if they don't know what's going on, they're liable to hate him. They're liable to hate society. I don't know what. But they're able to pigeonhole this as like, okay, he's drunk. He doesn't know what he's doing. So we'll leave it at that. No one is ready to be confronted with the idea that a white person and an African American person can be married. And so he pretends to be drunk to kind of give them that peace of mind, to give them a way out. He recognizes Dill's sensitivity. He says they're going to outgrow it, and that's kind of why he shared this with them. In a few years, Dill will not cry anymore over this racial injustice. He'll just accept it and move on, like everybody else has accepted it. Okay, so that's the end of that interview, if you will. Scout and Dill go back inside. They missed Mr. Gilmore's closing arguments, and Atticus has been doing his closing arguments, kind of going over the testimony and stuff. And Jem brings him up to speed and says it's just the normal stuff. So Mr. Gilmore's finished. Atticus has already started, and Atticus is acting different. Scout has seen Atticus in court many times, but he removes his watch. He sets it down. He unbuttons his shirt and his vest. He loosens his tie, removes his jacket. He has never done these things before. And what he is doing here is he is talking to the jury as one of them, as a person. He doesn't have these things on that show that he's a lawyer, that he's better, he's rich, he's well dressed. No, he's just like the farmer folk sitting in the jury thing now. He dresses them as if he's talking to them in a conversation. Okay? He's not talking to them as if he's better and they're worse, they need to listen to him. No, he's trying to appeal to their own sense of humanity. He tells them it's a simple case. It's as simple as black and white, which is a nice little way of saying this case is about racism. But he never uses that word at all in his closing arguments. But it is black and white. He reiterates that there was no medical evidence against Tom, right? The doctor was never called there. There is no proof that he raped Mayella. And Atticus said he pities Mayella. This is what Tom Robinson did earlier. And people got upset because here's this black person pitying a white person. But Atticus says that he pities Mayella because of her situation in life. But she is guilty of something, right? She broke a time-honored code, as it was put in the book. He pitted her because she is a victim of poverty, right? She is a victim of poverty. She has no opportunities. She can barely read and write, and she's got nowhere to go because of this poverty. She is a victim of ignorance. She's had 2 or maybe 3 years of schooling. She doesn't know. And she's a victim of being white. She can't love a black person, right, because she's white. And she can't do anything about it. Now here, Dolphus Raymond loves a black woman, but he's kind of rich and wealthy and can get away with it. Mayella does not have this opportunity. She's a victim of that poverty. And then Atticus goes on and explains that Mayella is childish. Okay? And one of the things that children will do, according to Atticus, is put this object of guilt far away from them. Picture yourself, you're a little kid, you're in the room playing, and you break a lamp. Okay, you pick it up, but there's the broken glass. You take it, you throw it away, and you try to hide all the evidence that you've broken something. This is natural according to Atticus. And Mayella wants to push the object of her guilt far away. She tried to kiss Tom Robinson. Dad saw, and they tried to get rid of Tom Robinson. He is the object of that guilt. And what did she do? She kissed a black person. In the 1930s, this is illegal. They're in court because Mayella kissed a black person. Her dad saw this, and then they had to do something about it, right? They had to get rid of the guilt that had ever happened and put all of the blame on Tom Robinson. And Atticus does a little interesting statement. He mentions that Bob Ewell's left hand signed the warrant and that Tom Robinson swore with his right hand, his only good hand. So that was kind of interesting. Atticus coming out and saying that, Bob Ewell is the one that punched Mayella with his left hand. Tom Robinson can't do it. He did not come out and say that in the closing statements that we heard. He might have said it earlier. And he mentioned that Mayella and Bob Ewell acted under this crazy assumption that whatever they said would be believed. No one would doubt anything they said because they're white and Tom Robinson is black. This is racism to the core. They assumed that the jurors would believe the evil assumption that all black people lie and that all black people are immoral. And this is a terrible, evil thing to think, right? This is racism 101 right there. And Bob Ewell and Mayella assumed everyone in that jury would go with it. Okay, it's a lie that many believed. Of course, this lie is terribly wrong. Some black people might lie, but you know what? Some white people lie, and some Asian people lie. And it's just a human thing. It doesn't matter the color of your skin. And Atticus tries to get that across to them. And as he's doing this, he's wiping his face, he's sweating, which is something the kids have never seen before. He doesn't sweat. He is so tore up by having to define racism to the jury to make them realize that Bob and Mayella and the community is like this. These are his friends, his people he lives with, and he's really laying it down hard on them. He finishes the closing arguments with a quote by Thomas Jefferson. And you are familiar with this. All men are created equal. Right? And it's something that we have grown up believing. And Atticus says this is not true. Okay? It is not true. Let me just read this to you from page 205, if I can find it here. One more thing, gentlemen, before I quit. Thomas Jefferson once said that all men are created equal, a phrase that Yankees and the staff side of the executive branch in Washington are fond of hurling at us, right? There's a tendency in this year of grace, 1935, for certain people to use this phrase out of context to satisfy all conditions. But Atticus is going to say this is wrong now. The most ridiculous example I can think of is that people who run for public education promote the stupid and idle along with industrious because all men are created equal. Educators will gravely tell you. The children left behind will suffer terrible feelings of inferiority. Well, that's interesting. Atticus is really bashing schools, okay? Because educators and teachers say all men are created equal. And the kids who are inferior, not as smart, are left behind feeling worthless, feeling inferior because, well, I'm equal, but I'm not as smart as that person. He goes on to say, we know all men are not created equal in the sense that some people would have us believe. Some people are smarter than others. That's true. Some people have more opportunities because they are born with it. Well, that's true, right? A person born into a rich family has more opportunity than someone born into a poor family. It's just the way it is. They're not equal. Some men make more money than others, right? Your parents might make more money than me. Some ladies make better cakes than others. And some people are born gifted beyond the normal scope of most men. Now, you could take each one of these phrases and point to someone in this book. Atticus is born more gifted than others with his ability to shoot. Miss Maudie makes better cakes than other people. Dolphus Raymond is richer than others. Scout is smarter than others. We can apply this to anyone. These people are not equal. And then Atticus goes on to talk about this quote a little bit more, and he says that the way to make everyone equal is with the courts. The courts in the country is the great equalizer. The richest person is just as equal as the poorest person in a court of law. And he's trying to tell the jury that Tom Robinson is just as equal as everybody else. He is a real human being. He is not worse than anyone. He's not better than anyone. He is truly equal to those jurors. Right? The court is only as good as the jurors who do the right thing. And Atticus is appealing to their sense of humanity to do the right thing. Right? Be a human and realize that Tom Robinson is just a normal person. He did not commit this crime of rape. And I believe that is the end of the closing arguments. Yeah, that's it. And I think we ended the chapter with Calpurnia running up to where Atticus is seated. And we'll find out what happens in the next chapter with that. Have a great day.